Okay, so I finally got round to rewatching the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury fight. When I watched the fight live, like most of you, I felt as though Tyson Fury had won it by a good few rounds, although I didn't score it when I watched it live. I watched it live, as you can see, on BT Sport box office. I paid for it. I supported the fight. And yeah, I didn't score it round by round, but the impression I had by the end of the fight was that Fury had won. Okay? A lot of the times when you watch a fight in the cold light of day the next day, particularly if you're being objective, which is what I'm being here, the fight does look different. And one thing I can tell you for certain is that there was no schooling that happened here. A schooling is like Billy Joe when he fought David Lemieux. That's a schooling. Even Tyson Fury when he fought Klitschko, you might say that was a schooling. Although less of a schooling than Billy Joe against Lemieux. This right here was not a schooling. Why? Because watching it second time around very closely in HD, watching for which punches actually miss and which punches are blocked and which ones land, I can tell you for certain. I can concur with what CompuBox numbers indicate, and that is there was a hell of a lot of close rounds here where there was not much to split them. Deontay Wilder landed a lot of jabs to the body, I can tell you that. His jab to the head wasn't as prolific, but he did land a few and managed to bloody Tyson Fury's nose with a jab to the head. Tyson Fury landed more memorable headshots other than the knockdowns that Deontay Wilder scored. Tyson Fury landed more memorable power punches, but they were still few and far between. This was not a fight where either man landed a lot of clean power punches. No, it wasn't. It was very low volume, okay? That's the reality of the fight. A lot of close rounds, which you could interpret one way or the other, and 2 knockdowns in Deontay Wilder's favor. So let's get into my scorecard, going through it round by round, surgically dissecting it with a fine-tooth comb, looking at what lands and what don't land. I can tell you a lot of Tyson Fury's jabs, the majority of them were blocked or missed. Watching it second time around, very closely in HD, okay? Wilder's jabs missed too. His head jabs and his power punches to the head were definitely less accurate than Fury's were. Anyway, let's get into my scorecard. First round, I scored it to Fury. I thought he edged it. Second round, I scored it to Wilder. I thought he edged it. Third round, Fury. Fourth round, Wilder. Fifth round, Fury. Sixth round, Wilder. Seventh round, Fury. Eighth round, Fury. Ninth round, Wilder 10-8. 10th round, Fury. 11th round, Fury. 12th round, Wilder 10-8. So after 12 rounds of boxing, watching the fight the second time around, I can tell you that if it wasn't for those 2 knockdowns, I would have had Tyson Fury winning this fight. But because of the 2 knockdowns, I know this is going to rub people up the wrong way, but I know how to score a fight. I know how to look at a fight objectively and impartially, which is what I did. And after 12 rounds, I've scored it the same as the British judge Phil Edwards, 113-113. Look, it would be a lot easier for me to come on here and tell you that I scored it in favor of Tyson Fury, because I know the kind of backlash I'm going to get for scoring the fight this way. People say, oh, you don't know how to score a fight. No, I know how to score a fight. You don't know how to be objective. That's your problem. If you've given the fight to Tyson Fury by a round or 2, I don't have an issue with that. As long as you understand that this was a close fight. A lot of close rounds. 100%. I mean, there were 2 rounds in this fight, which I initially wanted to score even, but I know that judges don't score fights evenly. They're encouraged not to. And because of that, because of some tiny little things that Fury did in those rounds, I gave them to Fury. Those 2 rounds, which I initially scored even. I was just like, judges don't score even rounds. Let me try and score it as a judge would score it. I scored him for Fury by the tiniest little margin. Okay, you could have easily given him even. So yeah, that's my scorecard. 113-113, which is the same as the judge Phil Edwards, the UK judge. Now, the judges, if they're professional, they're not caught up in the emotion of the event. They're not caught up in, oh, the Gypsy King's going to do it. And every time he lands a jab, you think he's won the whole round because he landed a solid jab. The judges are not thinking like that. Now, the judge that had it 115, 111 for Deontay Wilder, I definitely don't see it that way. There was a judge who had it a few rounds for Fury. I see it more in line with the British judge, Phil Edwards. That's how I saw it. 113, 113, a lot of close rounds, very difficult to split them. And that's the reality. I know I'm going to get a backlash, but that's the reality of it. This wasn't a fight where Fury was just teeing off all kinds of clean headshots. And no, the showboating by Fury made people think. People bought into the showboating in a lot of the rounds. His body language looked more confident in a lot of the rounds. And I think that swayed people subconsciously into thinking Fury's dominating this. It might have swayed me watching it first time around. But watching it second time around in the cold light of day, looking at it, going through the fight with a fine-tooth comb in HD, watching very closely, this was a close fight, I'm afraid, people. And the 113, 113 scorecard, I can't argue with. If you had it for Wilder by a round or two, I can't complain. If you had it to Fury by a round or two, I can't complain. But all this talk of robbery, honestly, I have to say it's nonsense. The 115, 111, I can understand why people have an issue with that. But the actual result of the fight being a draw, I can't argue with it because I've got it a draw. I can't argue with the result in retrospect. So it is what it is. Let the hate begin. But this channel is all about being objective. That's what it's all about. And that's what I'm doing. I'm being objective. It would be so much easier for me to just score the fight in Fury's favor. It would be so much easier for me before this video was recorded to go back over my scorecard and say, oh, you know what? I can't take the hassle from getting all this abuse from people. Let me go back and change some rounds in Fury's favor and just give it to Fury by a couple rounds. It'll be so much easier for me to do that. Trust me. Because the hassle and the abuse, it's annoying. People are hysterical about stuff like this. So it would be much easier for me to just score this fight in favor of Fury in terms of avoiding any kind of backlash. But I want to remain consistent. I want to be objective and say exactly what I see. And what I saw was a close fight. That's what I saw. Again, without the knockdowns, I would have scored it for Fury. Yeah. Even if Wilder had only won those rounds, the rounds that Wilder scored the knockdowns in, if he'd won those rounds but didn't score knockdowns, I would have had Fury winning by 2 points. Yeah. If Fury had won those rounds, then obviously Fury would have won the fight by a decent margin. But the knockdowns on my card were the difference. Those gave Deontay Wilder 4 points, or took 4 points off Tyson Fury. And those 4 points were crucial. So yeah, for me, the knockdowns were what made the fight a draw. Tyson Fury actually won more rounds on my card overall. He won more rounds, but as I say, the knockdowns are what cost him. So no robbery, I'm afraid, people. I know that's the narrative people want to latch onto. There was no robbery. It was a close fight, and I can't argue with a draw. I can't argue with a close decision either way. It was what it was. Was Deontay Wilder exposed? Well, it depends on your perspective going into the fight. Depends on your perspective. If you were of the opinion that Deontay Wilder had to win this fight easily by knockout in order to maintain his reputation, then yes, he was exposed. But if you are of the opinion that Deontay Wilder could have a lot of problems in this fight, and if he gets by with a points decision, then no, he wasn't exposed. So it all depends on your perspective going in. Me personally, I think that Deontay Wilder had a draw, and to me a legitimate draw, with a below par Tyson Fury. If this had been the Tyson Fury who fought Vladimir Klitschko, then he probably would have lost the fight, even with the knockdowns, Well, in fact, he probably wouldn't have scored the knockdowns if this was the Fury who fought Klitschko. So, yeah, I would have to imagine that the Fury who fought Klitschko would beat Deontay Wilder by a good few rounds. Yeah, and probably would have avoided getting dropped. But the version of Fury we have, who is below par, he still managed to win most of the rounds. And if it weren't for the knockdowns, he would have taken home the belt. So it is what it is. Bring on the the inevitable hate for being objective, for being impartial. It is what it is. Drop your comments below, people. It's happening. I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.